the panel, I recognise the traditional custodians of the land, the Ku-ring-gai
This meeting is being recorded.
Right, I'll start again. Welcome to the Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel meeting. On behalf of the panel, I recognise the traditional custodians of the land, the Ku-ring-gai people, on whose land we meet. Now, there's an order of business which I need to explain. In line with social distancing requirements to limit the spread of COVID-19 virus, Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel meetings will be held using conferencing technology until further notice. Today's meeting will be conducted over Zoom, as we all already realise. Any persons speaking at a local panel meeting are advised that their voice and personal information, including name and address, will be recorded as part of the meeting and made publicly available on Council's website via live stream and on-demand access, except any part of the meeting that is held in closed session. Accordingly, you must ensure that your address to the panel is respectful and that you used appropriate language and refrain from making any defamatory statements or discriminatory comments. Ku-ring-gai Council does not accept any liability for statements, comments or actions taken by individuals during a meeting of Ku-ring-gai Local Planning Panel People connected to this meeting by conferencing technology are reminded that under the Local Government Act, the recording of meetings by a member of the public using any electronic recording devices, including a mobile phone or video camera, is not permitted. Any person found recording without permission of Council may be expelled from the meeting. Some points to note: on-demand viewing of each KLPP meeting. I'll start that again. On-demand viewing of each KLPP meeting will be available until the holding of the subsequent meeting. Recordings of meetings are copyright protected and cannot be reused or reproduced without approval from the Council. Now, moving into the meeting procedures themselves. First of all, I call for apologies. No apologies have been received, so that there's not necessary to record any in that event. I will introduce the various members of the panel in a moment and ask them to indicate to those who are at the meeting what their respective expertise and interests are, so that the public people attending the meeting have an understanding of the background of these people and their entitlement to be panel members. I'm the chair of the meeting and my name is Angus Talbot. I have been a solicitor, I have been a barrister, and I have been a judge in the Land Environment Court for 15 years. And since then I've sat on a various numbers of panels similar to this one, and also done other works related generally to the planning area. I will now ask each of the panel members to introduce themselves and give you a brief outline of their expertise, starting with Mr. Gerard Teresi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gerard Teresi, I'm a town planner. I've got 34 years experience as a planner, 15 years of that is in local government, of which 5 was at a director level, and then 19 years now in private, in the private sector, acting for both councils and for applicants. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Teresi. I move on now to Mr. Tony Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tony Blue, I'm a town planner. Been in practice 30, how many years? 39 years.
You'll have to tell us.
Yeah, 39 years, so 25 years as an employee of local government in New South Wales, and then the last 14 years as a consultant and contractor for both local government, state government, and for private industry.
Mr. Blue. Mr. Frank Coe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Frank Coe. I'm the community representative I've been the local resident and also a qualified town planner for more than 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coe. Now, I ask each of the panel members to indicate whether they have any declarations of interest to make in respect of any matter before the panel today. I personally declare no interest. Mr. Trissy?
I have no interest, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Blue?
I have no interest, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Coe?
No interest, Mr. Chair.
Are there any declarations of interest from the staff?
There are none, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now, the speakers who have registered and who are online at the moment waiting to have their opportunity to speak will be called by name individually, and the period of time that they're permitted is 3 minutes. There will be, at the end of the 3-minute period, a bell, and that will be an indication that the time is up and that you should thereupon wind up your address to the panel, and then prepare yourself for any questions that may come from the members of the panel. Now, the first speaker that I call is Mr. Darryl Harvey. Are you there, Mr. Harvey?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey. Well, we'd be pleased to hear your submission now, and your 3 minutes is starting now.
Hello, my name is Darryl Harvey and I am the owner of 124 Boundary Road, Wahroonga, which is on the western boundary of the proposed development. We have raised several issues in our 2 submissions, which have been dismissed by the applicant and/or council as minor. But all these minor issues combine to have a significant cumulative impact on us. The proposed development continues to weigh heavily in favour of the applicant. The design has maximised their privacy, sunlight and outlook to the detriment of ours. These are key issues are reasons for my family buying our house. We continue to have the following objections despite the amended plans and council imposed conditions. Firstly, we strongly object to the west-facing master bedroom window. It, along with the north-facing window, forms a corner window with a wide view over our backyard, pool, kitchen and family room. Increased sill height or obscure glazing is not a solution. The west-facing window is unnecessary for solar access and should be removed so my family doesn't feel uncomfortable and exposed in our own private space. The only window in the master bedroom should be north-facing and subject to the imposed condition. Second, we object to the current form of the 3 windows in bedroom 3, which council concedes has low sill height. These will interfere with privacy to our bedrooms and backyard due to their low sill height. These windows should be subject to the same condition imposed on the rear windows, which is increased sill height and/or obscure glazing. Third, we object to non-compliance with building height envelope. The applicant has had the opportunity to comply via amended plans but has failed to do so. What is the point of having a regulation if you are not required to comply with it? The development is already bulky. Strict compliance with the building height envelope should be enforced. Fourth, we object to a lily-pilly which can grow 13 metres being planted in the rear northwest corner of the property adjacent to our pool. Council suggests that it can be planted as a hedge. If it is unable to be located elsewhere, we seek a condition that it be maintained at hedge height so it will not block further light to our property or drop debris into our pool. Fifth, we object to the location of a retractable clothesline which is proposed along the western boundary of the property. The placement of the clothesline has ensured that the applicant does not see it from its kitchen or entertaining area, but rather we see it from ours. This is unfair as there are other locations where it could be placed. Sixth, although a domestic property, we request a condition that kitchen ventilation be properly ducted through the roof rather than the facade, given the proximity of the kitchen to our bedroom and entertaining area. We similarly seek a condition that the butler's pantry window be below fence height so it does not compromise our bedroom privacy. In conclusion, I ask that the panel reconsider those aspects of the plan that I have spoken about today to ensure that our privacy and amenity is protected. Thank you.
Thank you for your assistance, Mr. Harvey. Now, don't go away because I want to ask the panel members if they have any questions. Mr. Teresi?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Blue?
No, thanks, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Coe?
Mr. Chair, I do have a questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Harvey, Frank Coe, I'm the community representatives. I'd just like to clarify the first point that you mentioned in relation to privacy. So you mentioned about the corner window to the master bedroom. Are you aware of council's conditions? Obviously, so you're saying the condition in relation to C2, which is the west-facing window, that window should be deleted.
Yes, that is correct. It is a corner window which gives complete views over a 90-degree window completely over our backyard, and is unnecessary for solar access given a direct north-facing property with C1 window providing enough of that and view to their backyard.
Okay, so you're fine with C1 and the bedroom 2 window, which is D1, having a sill height of 1.5. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct for the north-facing window, except that I don't believe the west-facing window is necessary.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey, and thank you for your assistance. We now call upon John Cowan. Are you there, Mr. Cowan?
That's me.
Good, thank you. You're from 151 Boundary Road. That's opposite the property.
Correct.
And you'll understand, of course, and everybody should understand that the panel members have inspected the site and the neighbourhood. Mr. Cowan, you'll have your 3 minutes. You've heard what I said earlier, so I'll just simply invite you to start your submission now. The 3 minutes will commence. Thank you.
Thank you. I have worked in the construction industry for the last 46 years. I'm a little confused about some of the issues that have been raised in the current development application assessment. For example, page 8, 5B shows incomplete existing stormwater drainage. Subsoil drainage is acceptable to council, which is in conflict to other conditions. The subsoil drainage is not drawn on the Nastasi and Associates engineering drawings. All subsoil drainage shall be collected and connected to the site's drainage system. The subsoil drainage is not shown on the Nastasi drawings. Stormwater drainage from the rear of the property to Boundary Road based on a 1 in 100 stormwater gradient is not achievable. And if you look at the data in the report, it gives you the standard or the AHD levels in the northeast corner and the southeast corner. That length is 51 metres. The achievable stormwater gradient from back to front is minus 1 in 100 or 1 in 50 gradient, which indicates that the water will flow to the north of the property. This confirms that the residents in 128 Boundary Road will be flooded on a regular basis. And if the panel have been to have a look at the site, you can see the end of the existing pipe with no cap on it. It cannot flow from the north end of the site to the street. on the gradient. I don't understand. Page 15 of the assessment report talks about a condition 10 requires a 2 metre clearance from the side boundary to 128 Boundary Road. It's not shown on the drawings either. So I don't understand how that works, to be honest with you. Number 3, well, page 16, miscellaneous design issues and documentation. As noted in the KMC Development Assessment Report, is incomplete. Searching through the development assessment report, there is a lot of missing information. So how can an assessment be made if there's not the information available? I will have to stop, I'm afraid.
All right, thank you.
My time up.
Yes, thank you. It's a very persistent bell, isn't it?
It's a pain in the backside.
Mr. Teresi,
can I just make one little comment, please, at the very
certainly,
end?
Certainly.
After I've read the report, for example, condition 52, garbage and recycling facilities, it says that they're going to be in the basement. There is no basement in the building.
Right. Okay, thank you.
There is no basement. So to me, it looks like a cut and paste in putting some of those clauses together.
I've made a note of that. Thank you. Mr. Teresi, do you have any questions for Mr. Cowan?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Mr. Blue?
No, thanks.
Mr. Coe?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Cowan. We may take this matter up with the applicant's representative in a moment. Thank you for your assistance.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Gus van der Flag. Are you there, Mr. van der Flag?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Well, if you're ready, your time can start now.
The first issue is that there are no updated or modified drainage management plans in circumstances where modifications are scheduled to be made under condition 10, which require retaining walls, plural, to be removed, and where the original ground level is to be reinstated along the eastern boundary line. That's with 128. Relevantly, no details are given, for example, as to how the proposed earthworks will affect the site's stormwater runoff. The report expressly refers to the need for the development to respect the natural topography of the land, and presumably this applies to both the front and the rear of the property. And this overlaps with the need to clarify if condition 10 in fact applies to both the front and rear of the eastern timber retaining walls, which abut very close to the fence. A spa pool and screening is to be constructed about 2.2 metres from that eastern boundary, and we query how that will impact on drainage for ground levels to be restored to original levels. And it's also not clear to us from both the engineer's plans and landscape plans how this structure will be constructed next to the pool, whether on natural ground or on fill in a garden bed next to the timber retaining walls. Second, the report's schedule of approved architectural plans and documents does not refer to or include a survey. The report's site description, however, makes reference to the survey plan, which shows concrete and timber retaining walls along the common boundary with 128, and goes on to state that the survey plan does not show the natural ground heights at these properties, and that the height of the rear yard has been elevated, and this accords with height measurements shown on the submitted survey plan. It confirms that the land's topography was substantially modified, and we say that was in about 2015 by the construction of retained garden beds and grassed areas, some of which have redirected runoff to lower levels via plastic pipework, which the council was given notice about. Accordingly, there is no longer much evidence of natural topography, and noting that overland flow has been redirected by that earlier landscaping, which is also affected by the proposed development's condition 10. The report shows the level of fill next to the eastern retaining wall and across the swimming pool coping edge at page 10. A new survey should be prepared and submitted for the purpose of accurately establishing the height of natural ground before any approval or commencement of work, and to assess how and where overland flow will go and affect lower properties like ours. Third, there is also a need to submit updated landscape plans. This follows from the inclusion of condition 10 as I've already referred to above, and the construction of those retaining walls under condition 10. Fourth, there should be a full and accurate detail given about the positioning and scale of air conditioning system. There is a concern about the positioning of this unit in circumstances where our air quality might be compromised, as we have already experienced in 2015 with discharge from the system sited adjacent to our windows. I note the time, Mr. Chair.
I beg your
I note
pardon.
the time, but I've got about
Yes, you note
3
the time.
points to go.
What I'd ask you to do is just wind it up in your own time. Thank you. I'll give you that
Thank
extra
you.
time to bring it to a head. You've got one more point to make, I think.
Well, I've got three short issues, which will take about half to a minute.
All right. Well, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Thank you. I was on to the fourth issue, which dealt with the air conditioning. And to finalise that issue, we have the pandemic around at the moment. And one of the issues is infected droplets being spread through the air from sources where there are infections. That's a concern. The fifth one is about the building envelope, which other speakers have dealt with. And there is no explanation given as to why this hasn't been adequately addressed. Right? And also there are other breaches which include the fact that the first floor northeastern corner of the dwelling, that's along the eastern boundary, which sits directly above the ground floor, and it is a rendered straight wall, is a wall which is not stepped back as it apparently should be. The sixth issue deals with privacy. The report fails to address at all the first floor terrace above the garage, which affects our privacy and amenity. It looks over our front facade. There is a ground floor bedroom and ensuite which faces Boundary Road, which is overlooked by this terraced area. And this is certainly not a minor impact, especially if it's used for entertainment or recreation. And the final point really is that the dwelling, with its size and bulk and so on, and its overbearing character, doesn't fit comfortably into the local area. And we draw your attention to the photographs in 1972 of the Land Department's land where there is vacant blocks. 1988, the blocks are established with buildings which are all face brick, tiled roofs, set back with no front gardens predominantly, or no front fencing, I should say. And this is now being slowly eroded by the type of dwelling that we're getting next door. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Van der Flag. Just before you go, are there any questions, Mr. DeRussi?
No, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Blue?
No, thanks, Mr. Chair.
And Mr. Coe? Mr. Coe? Can you hear me, Mr. Coe?
Sorry, no question, Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, thank you. Then thank you, Mr. Van der Flag.
Thank you.
The next person listed is Douglas Cummins, representing the applicant. There, Mr. Cummins?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Cummins, there's been a number of issues raised during the submissions that have been made. I would expect you to address those, even if it's to ensure that you say they've already been covered. But there'll be other matters that you might like to address. Your 3 minutes will start. Just before you start, are you the architect, are you? Is that your position?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Thank you. Well, your 3 minutes will start now, Mr. Cummins.
Well, just in respect to answering all these questions, I tried to list them down. Not being a stenographer, a little bit hard to catch all of them, but happy to address them. But I think that'll take up most of my 3 minutes. But in reference to the actual design itself, the design was based using the controls from Council of the LEP and DCP, We did look at all those concerns in reference to the first submission. We had a liaison meeting with council to try and address those concerns, and look at submissions from owners to try and mediate and work with those to try and make the flow of the house conducive to modern architecture, but still within keeping with the street character and the environment and the local area. There have been many examples of modern architecture, seamlessly blending in with the character and elements of that municipality. In reference to the height, we definitely looked at the height, the FSR, the site coverage, mitigation with using existing structures such as the sandstone fence, and then tried to mute the colours of the house to blend in with earth tones. Again, using the sandstone fence as the mediator. We also introduced sandstone within the structure itself to try and blend existing and new elements together. Use of existing trees to try and also help the topography as well, in reference to using the natural landscape and the levels that were achieved. I will answer directly questions that might come from the panel in reference to the natural landscape and those achieved levels that we've now looked at in reference to that, but we have not proposed any large earthworks or excavation in reference to that, and we tried to look at trying to combine as many of the aspects of solar aspect for all visual components as well as privacy and the amenities of neighbours who are overview to and from. So it was a lot of those things that were all taken into consideration with that initial design. And in reference to that, also one of the big predicators for some of the materials that we used was because it has been affected by flame zone in reference to the park or that reserve that is adjacent on the northeast corner. So there were many factors taken into consideration, but it is a DA, not a CC. A lot of the submissions that were put together were basically asking for things that are beyond the DA component at the moment. Obviously, fully detailed plans will be submitted for the CC, whether it's by a council or for a certifier, once we have the development at least in tow and try to move forward from there. In reference to the plan itself, we have worked with council and in reference to that tried to mitigate any of the major concerns. Size and bulk, definitely we had one constraint there, we'll finish, but one constraint in reference to a very, very small encroachment within the parapet height, and it's a very minor encroachment. The offsets and setbacks from both the east and west boundaries definitely allow us to articulate the house and keep the control of the height, size and bulk and the visual aspect in reference to that, as can be seen by the montage that was lodged.
All right, Mr. Cummins, there's a particular concern expressed by the other submitters in relation to the drainage question. Is it your understanding that whatever's there at the moment will be entirely replaced with a totally new system?
Well, yes and no. When I first lodged this, we did
tell me about the no.
Well, no, in the sense that we've got a drainage plan that now has the existing house removed and new drainage for the house. So yes, in reference to the existing site area that will be picked up with the subsoil drainage and what have you, I was proposing that to be retained as per the original house, because we're not touching the natural ground levels at all in reference to the structure. We've actually utilised the pool and the pool concourse and that level that was already existing, and I assumed, rightly or wrongly, that would be retained, sacrosanct, untouched, and just upgrade the pool concourse to a more modern tile, but the actual RLs that are there existing would be retained.
Thank you.
There has been a submission, and I won't take your time, sir, but
the recording has stopped.
Hello?
I don't know what that was, but we're still continuing. Yes,
Look, there was an objection by the gentleman next door on the eastern side in reference to the subsoil drainage. Look, that will be addressed, and happy for council to condition that in reference to it. But I assume that would all been ratified when I spoke to the owner in reference to any of the works that had happened there. That was all done in 2014, 2015. In reference to trying to mitigate the amount of water that would travel through the block and into the neighbour's yard.
So
and I assume that was.
You're telling me you're telling me there's been no design for that?
Not from our side, in the sense that the subsoil drainage was going to be retained as existing and supplemented by the new OSD. And any water that's coming from the new structure would be taken from the OSD and then bypassed directly to the street, as per the hydraulics plan that was prepared by Nastasi and Associates.
All right. Well, we might refer that to the engineers of council when we consider this question. Mr. Teresi, you got any questions?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I trust you've reviewed the conditions of approval, particularly conditions 10 and 11.
Yes, I have, sir.
Have you got any comments in terms of those conditions?
Look, not directly. Happy to address them and give the information directly back to the various departments within council. In reference, I think we can achieve all those conditions quite readily.
Okay. There was a comment made by one of the speakers about the clothesline, which is located on the western boundary. It's shown on your landscape plans, but looking at your architectural plans, it doesn't seem to be noted. Do you know the height of that clothesline would be off the ground level?
Well, it's natural ground level, and it would be normally 1.2 metres. So I can't be concerned there.
So what was that? I lost you.
Yeah, as I said, it's normally set at 1.8 metres. Any higher than that, and most people would need a ladder to put the clothes on the line. It is a fold-down line that was proposed, and it's lower than the boundary fence on that side. So I can't see where it's a visual impairment to anyone's amenities.
Is the boundary fence 1.8 metres at the moment?
Yes, it's existing.
Right.
It is existing 1.8 timber boundary fence.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. On your architectural plans, you have on the windows a notation which says frame louver grills to manufacturing specifications. Now, have you provided council any details as to those louvers, or is it yet to be designed?
Well, if we're looking at louvers, are they louver windows that you're alluding to, or a grill as such?
Well, on your... Sorry, go on.
The only louver grills that we've got are a highlight louver grill, and they're just powder coated, and they are set high at the alfresco area, and to allow still cross-flow ventilation, but also give total privacy to and from.
Okay, but if I look at if I look at your eastern elevation, for instance, on the ground level,
yep. Yes,
you've got
because
you've got frame louvers grilled to manufacturing specification, but then you've also got next to the window another sort of louver system. So I'm trying to understand the detailing of that louver system, because some of that seems to form part of the
per the window schedule, all the framed louvers are glass, so they're clear, unobscured. The actual framed louver that we're talking about there for the alfresco area is basically it's an aluminium louver that will easily act as a ventilation source, but definitely keep you private because it is higher than the fence height.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And that encloses the alfresco side to the space.
Thank you. That's the only questions I had.
Thank you, Mr. Tarusi.
Thank you.
Mr. Blue, do you have questions?
Just wanted to confirm with Mr. Cummins that he understands that there's some history with that retaining wall along the eastern boundary, and that that condition is intended to remove those what council believe are unauthorised works. So are you aware of
Yes,
that,
I
Mr.
do,
Cummins?
sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I am. And just recently, council has put it on hold because they were going to put an order to get something done. So that was obviously it come in after the conditions that came in that we've just been discussing. But in reference to that, the original topography of that land was like most of those older subdivisions, no easement at the back. So the crossfall was, normally towards that northeastern corner. This was addressed by the owner and also the owner of the adjoining property, from what I can gather, in 2014, 2015, to try and allay his concerns that he was getting a lot of water going through. So my client, Dr. Machado, basically engaged someone to come through. He wasn't aware that he was doing illegal works, and he has spoken directly to a representative from council to try and address this. They've put it on hold until the end of this meeting, or the determination from this meeting, and any conditions that might be imposed by the DA. Okay.
And you're satisfied you can comply with that condition 10 about removing those?
I haven't had a direct response from the hydraulics engineers, but other than a quick précis of it, they nodded to say yes, they can.
Okay. That's all.
But in all instances, as I said, with the natural topography, most of those blocks would have an absorption trench of some sort that over the years becomes clogged and what have you, and needs refurbishment. This will hopefully be addressed with a new system that will actually try and keep most of the water from 126 on 126 property rather than it flowing through.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all I've got.
Mr. Coe, thank you, Mr. Blue. Mr. Coe, do you have a question?
No questions for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Cummins, I think I would just like to confer with members of the panel offline to see whether we need to do anything further in this public meeting. Can that be arranged, please, for us to go into a private session just quickly while the other people hang on, and we'll come back?
Yeah, just one thing, if I could just answer a question that was raised by one of the submissions there, the gentleman next door on that western face, 124. Is that possible? Just to give you a little bit more information.
Well, you can do that. I was hoping to be in private session by now, but somehow you've beaten us to it.
No, it's your call.
Go on, Mr. Cummins, please.
I was just in reference to the visual distance. I can understand the concerns from that western neighbour in reference to the master bedroom and the privacy issues there. We're happy to look at addressing that and removing that corner window if they feel it is more a visual aspect to get as much natural light into there. It's a non-common area, so it is a bedroom as such. But if it is of a major concern to the gentleman, Mr. Harvey, next door,
well, it's not him. It's not him anymore. It's the panel, and you are saying to the panel that you would accept a condition to remove that window.
Well, not the whole window, but that corner window, C2, I think it is, just on that corner, the western face. Yeah. The visual distance, I thought, with landscaping and what have you, would mitigate a major overview. It's not a common area, but happy to address the panel if they have questions on that, or get their candour if they feel as though it needs to be removed.
Just to be clear, you're saying that if the panel imposed a condition to remove window C2, then the applicant would be satisfied with that. Thank you.
I feel that would be a good consensus.
All right. Okay. Can the engineer, the IT engineer, give us a private session? retire and will confer to take into account the submissions that have been made, which will, of course, be considered in the light of what the panel has seen by visiting the site and having regard to the various reports and plans that have been before them. And after that deliberation, the decision will be made and it will appear on the council's website within 48 hours of the close of this meeting. The meeting is now closed.